Hey family, you are about to watch a video where I interview an extraordinary entrepreneur from Port Elizabeth who built a permanent business and he's under 25. With me in studio, I have Josè Muniz. Josè, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you, buddy, man. Thank you for taking the time to actually do this and share with others what they can also do. I know that you are very humble about what you've achieved already, but you are an inspiration to many. I want you to know that. So, but before we get into business, people want to get to know you. Who's Josè?
Sure.
Where did you grow up?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in, I was born in Galvindale.
Okay.
So I grew up in PE. I'm a PE boy, born in Galvindale. That's where I basically, found my roots.
Sure.
Grew up there. Moved out when I was primary school. We moved to a different area. But yeah, I'm a PE boy. Born and bred here. And yeah, I think it'll always be my home. So
sure, 100%. So tell me, was entrepreneurship your first choice, or how has the journey gone?
I would say unknowingly, yes.
Okay.
So I've always had a very keen, I'd say, interest in business, in how I can go about doing something that would generate value for other people and for myself. So from a very young age, I would do stupid things like I would write books coming home from primary school.
Sure.
Write books with like pens and pencils. And then some family of mine that we just, like essentially they would buy it from me,
Sure.
So they would buy these books from me that were practically worth less than nothing.
Yeah.
And that was sort of my very first experience with entrepreneurship. But as I got a bit older, at the beginning of high school, the end of primary school, I really developed a passion for medicine.
Okay.
Specifically surgery, and I was almost certain that was what I sort of wanted to do. But yeah, I think as you'll find out about my story,
sure.
That also changed at a later stage into essentially putting me on the path to where we are today. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So this makes me actually think of my daughter. She made a menu, and she would ask me what would I like for breakfast.
True.
And then she would make whatever I want for breakfast out of my ingredients in my kitchen.
Fantastic. So she'll be a chef.
And then she invoices me.
Oh, okay, great. Excellent.
So it's actually good to hear your story as well, that you have been exposed to exchanging value.
Yeah.
And God bless your family who actually saw that and didn't say, you know what, no, you can't sell this, because that might have kinked your perspective of business.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other relatives who are into business, or what are your parents? Are they in business or?
No. My mom's a housewife.
Okay.
My dad works at the bank. But he also, sort of tried the business route at some point as well. He started his own fishery that was running for, I think, about 2 or 3 years, and then he closed it down because he just didn't have enough time to do both his day job as well as the side business, So yes, there definitely, I think, was quite a lot of exposure to entrepreneurship growing up. I do also have some role models that are very close to me that, I've obviously also looked up to that are businessmen themselves as well.
Sure. So if people look at you now and they learn that your offices are in Cape Road, in Milpark, they may think that everything would just basically, it just happened, everything you touch, it just turned into gold, or you didn't go through any challenges. What are some of the challenges that you can remember, and how did you get through them?
Yeah. Jeez, there's so many. Look, I started this journey of mine at a very young age.
Sure.
So I started when I was about 14, 15 years old. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a tech entrepreneur. I wanted to use tech to develop solutions to some of the world's biggest problems, and I was very passionate about it. So I started at a very young age. Obviously, starting at a young age, there were a lot of challenges. I didn't have the necessary means, to start, but I was able to start through the Propeller Business Incubator. I joined the incubator with an idea that I had, and through that process I was able to learn quite a lot and grow quite a lot. But obviously, being as young as I am, I didn't have the means, to necessarily go and even build a website or go and see clients or whatever the case may be. I think one of my key challenges was my speech. So growing up, I had a huge stuttering problem.
Sure.
I could not speak to people.
Wow.
In fact, doing something like this would have been completely impossible. I would go to meetings with some big clients, and I wasn't able to say a word. So what I would do is I would put up a presentation where I typed out everything, and I'd make them read that, because I couldn't speak. So that was one of the biggest challenges that in my life that I've had to overcome. By God's grace, I've overcome it. So I can go into any meeting now with anybody, and I can speak as freely as I want to, which I think is just something that has been able to come about by God's grace. But that was one of the biggest challenges. Also, starting something with not much resources, I was very privileged to have had the opportunity to join the incubator, where at least I could, have gotten some exposure to having a bit of an office space, to understanding what business culture looks like. So I was exposed to quite a lot of that. But I tried and I failed many times. I came up with an idea, the idea didn't work out, I failed, started something else, failed. So I pivoted many times, but I think it's just the journey of entrepreneurship. You've got to try and fail up until you start failing less. Sometimes the world thinks that you're succeeding, but you're still failing in certain areas. So I think it's all about trying to fail as less as possible.
100%. Wow. Speak about determination. I mean, what you had to go through in terms of preparing a presentation, and not just deciding, I can't do it, I'm not going to do it. I can remember, I think it was your first year after school when you came to me. You said that you want to create this tech in terms of something to the effect of your car being able to identify your health status, because some people will go and have a heart attack whilst driving, all of those kind of things. And I could see the passion, and you spoke something to the effect of trying to get to speak to Elon. But at the end of the day, I always knew that you are going to go far. And looking at GrowTech now and the work that you guys are doing there, I don't know whether that business idea materialized, but you guys are doing so much already. So what has inspired you to specifically go into tech?
Sure. Yeah, I think, I got to the understanding at a young age that technology is sort of the best vehicle to drive change in the world. I always wanted to be someone that, could become a pioneer in a certain field or in a certain way of thinking. And I saw technology as basically the best vehicle to be able to do that. And not only to be able to do that, but also to be able to, solve some of the world's biggest problems. We live in a world where there's a lot of problems. And I think when technology is utilized to its fullest potential, you can really, it's the best way to develop solutions to the world's problems. So that's what really got me passionate about it, and that's what I think that coupled with me just having a very strong foundation from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think that's basically what was the driving factor to me choosing to do that job.
So, Josè, I have a background in construction, right? So I used to do tiling, and I couldn't understand how someone can sit in front of a computer and create value. So I just couldn't understand it. That was my limitation.
Yes.
Breaking into business, the mindset, I had to go through a whole lot of courses, books,
Sure.
and all of those kind of things. Now, if I listened to this podcast back then I would have maybe wanted certain things to be broken down into layman's language. So for those people who do not maybe know what GovTech does, what do you guys do in layman's language? What do you actually do? Like I would, for instance, say, I know that you guys build software in terms of you can build an app, you know. So yeah, just share with us what does GovTech do and what you guys do.
So in the sphere of us being a tech company, we do, software development. We can build out your web apps, your mobile apps, and so on. But our real specialty is in artificial intelligence. So what we do is our core business is essentially building out artificial intelligence systems for industry. So whether it be the automotive industry or the food and beverage industry, our focus is on building out artificial intelligence based applications, to solve problems in those industries, and the kind of problems that artificial intelligence is the best tool to use to solve those problems. So we essentially specialize in the use of artificial intelligence. I'm not sure if that's a simple enough answer.
I'm going to try and ask questions so you can elaborate on
Sure.
it. Now, you spoke about industries. Let's say the food industry.
Yeah.
So what kind of problems and how does artificial intelligence solve problems like that?
Sure. So in any sort of manufacturing environment, you have a lot of equipment, you've got a lot of machines and so on. Some equipment is very critical to the business process. So we've got an artificial intelligence platform that is able to do pattern recognition on those machines. So we capture data from the machines in the form of vibration and temperature data. Our models then essentially learn what the normal pattern of operation of those machines are, and if the machine ever deviates from that normal pattern of operation, it's able to then red flag it and send alerts out to whoever the relevant stakeholders are in the company. So the industry term for that is predictive maintenance. So essentially what that means is you're able to predict machine failure ahead of time. So for example, where you've got big motors, if you're able to solve an issue whereby you've got a clogged oil filter, for example, before your internal components don't have lubrication and they seize, it's a much smaller problem to find and to fix before you have a failure event that can cost your company a lot of money in terms of downtime, in terms of production, and so on. So that's one of the key systems that we've built out in the last few years. We've also built out a lot of machine vision systems using artificial intelligence. So for example, in any manufacturing industry, once again, you have a lot of production that's happening. With production, you've got things like quality. So the use of machine vision systems driven by AI has been a very powerful tool in the quality space, because you're able to identify abnormalities in your parts being produced. You're able to classify, certain parts. Are they good parts? Are they bad parts? You're able to do a whole range of inspections automatically and a lot more efficiently because of the use of artificial intelligence technologies. So that's been our primary focus for the last few years. Our focus now is really just looking at additional problems that we can solve using artificial intelligence. So one of our newest products is our PPE detection system. for the warehousing space, for the construction space, for example, where you've got safety officers that have got to manually ensure that everybody complies with PPE standards and so on. It's obviously not practical for one person to make sure everybody's always compliant with PPE. So we've got an AI system that effectively tracks whether workers are complying with their PPE standards and requirements, and obviously if they don't comply, if somebody's working on a construction site and they're not wearing a hard hat, for example, it's able to flag that and draw attention to that before it can become a safety problem. Yeah. So those are just some of the applications and the products that we've been building out in the last few years.
Fantastic. I can remember when I used to live in Cape Town, I used to work in a factory, Swartland. They make doors and your windows, the wooden ones. And when we would have a breakdown, then it's like 30 or 40 people standing still. So obviously with your tech, it's like basically servicing your car before it actually breaks down. Correct. So thank you so much for sharing. You've mentioned about the role that Propeller has played in terms of teaching you business skills, etc. But the person listening to this here today who has a vision of going into tech, how can they find tools in order to grow their skill and become competent in the market? Yeah. Or in fact, how did you do it?
Sure. I think if you've got internet and access to a computer, the world is your oyster. You know, you can do anything, you can learn anything. Look, I immersed myself quite a lot, and I think that's the starting point is, you know, for somebody who wants to get into it, immerse yourself into the field, into the space that you want to be in as much as possible. I started writing my own code. I started learning different tech stacks. I started learning how computer systems work. You know, I became very immersed in what it is that I wanted to do. I think that's a good starting point, because when you're speaking to someone, you know, it's important to have an understanding of things that you're speaking about or what you want to do. The second thing I would say is, you know, you need to identify a problem that's worth solving. You know,
demand.
Yes. A lot of times, and I've made this mistake in the past as well, is you want to develop a solution to a problem that you don't really understand, or to a problem that might not even exist. You know, so it's when you're very idea driven and you come up with an idea, you know, that idea doesn't always have a worthwhile problem attached to it, you know, to make it viable enough to pursue. So I would say start with the problem first that you identify, that you can validate, that you can prove is a problem, and then, you know, find a solution or an idea based on that.
100%. So I have a model that I also follow in terms of what is a viable business, and networking with entrepreneurs throughout the world. I see that successful entrepreneurs, they actually follow this as well. They may not call it this, but we call it TRD. So obviously in your business, you need to, as it goes, you need to obviously hire others and basically have a good team. So making sure that you have a good team. And then R standing for resources, because if you have a good team, you need to have the resources or the funding in order to make sure that they stay electric car, because fuel prices goes up. Hey family, thank you for watching this week's episode. And in this week's episode, Josè obviously shares his methods on how they were able to build a major company within the software space. Now, I know that many of you want to ask questions and also learn how you can do the same. So we created a private community. So in that community, you will be able to ask questions, and the guests whom we interview will be able to answer them. And then secondly, I will share with you how you can also start a podcast and potentially earn like 10K for every episode that you release. So if you're releasing, let's say 4 per month, then you can potentially earn yourself a 40K. Remember, it's not going to happen overnight. However, I will share with you on how you can actually do this. So go to the description and you will be able to click on the link, lucian.com/community. Thank you so much for tuning in, and yeah, we are looking forward to having you here. The first week, it is absolutely free, and then you can decide whether you want to form part of us long term. Thank you so much for being here. So please continue to watch Josè's methods and learn from him on how he has done it, and potentially you will be able to be inspired or even share this with someone else that will be going down the same journey. Thank you so much. Hey family, we're back, and thank you for being part of this amazing episode. So, Josè, I'm married for 11 years now, and choosing a business partner, I believe it's almost as important as choosing a life partner.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that you have had deals not working out, etc. And what you guys are having at Growth Tech, yourself and Sean and the team, it's just amazing. So how does one choose a business partner?
Yeah. Look, I was very privileged. I don't know how often it happens that you can be that privileged. But when Sean and I met, we actually met because of church reasons. And we met, and he told me, look, there's this website that he wants to build. Can I help him out to build the website? I said, sure. So I helped him to build the website, but that's essentially where we met,
Sure.
And I've never before in my life ever met a person as a friend that, I 100% shared values with. We shared the same values, we shared the same opinions, the same thoughts, the same political views, the same social views. All of our views aligned. And I had never before in my life met a person where that was the case. So I sort of knew from the beginning when we met, that we'd become very, very good friends because of that connection. But we then also, then very soon after that, decided to start Growth Tech together, because I obviously had the tech background. He had a very solid background from a business perspective as well. So I was really trying to rally a team together, that could start pushing this vision forward. And I was very blessed by the fact that, he also had a vision that was aligned to mine. So I think, that's very important, is having someone that you're doing business with to have the same values that you have, to have a vision that's aligned to yours. And I think, if those things are in place, it's a very good start. I think personality also is one of the big things.
Sure.
It's important to know who you're doing business with. You get various types of people. For example, you get the kind of people where if there's a problem, they'd rather not speak about it. They'd rather shy away from it, let it fester. Those are not good people, in my opinion, to do business with, because on a daily basis, you've got problems. You've got issues, you've got disagreements. And I was very blessed with Sean. We've got a very dynamic way of solving issues. We never take things personal. For example, if we have disagreements, we can debate the issue. We can debate the issue to death, but it will never become personal, because I love who he is as a person. I'd like to think that he likes who I am as a person as well. So things never become personal. We definitely have our fights and our disagreements, but that's where it stays. And the nice thing is that we can always speak about it when the issue arises. Communication between us is very effective. So I think those are some of the key principles when you're choosing a business partner. They must be someone you can communicate with, you can understand. They must have a vision that's aligned to yours, and they must have the same values as you as well.
Sure. Now, hiring people can be a tricky thing because
Yeah.
people put stuff on their resume
Yeah.
just to look good.
Yeah.
Have you ever hired people and realized, you know what, you are totally not a good fit for this
Yeah.
business?
Too many times. Too many times. We made the mistake where we hired people too often just based on face value.
Sure.
Or based on what their CV says. If we see a skill competence, for example, that's aligned to what we need, we'd hire them. And we've gotten to understand with time that it's a lot more complicated than that, Especially with being a growing company, it's important to hire people with, once again, the same values that
Sure.
yourself and your existing team has, If somebody comes in with alternative values, then very often it can lead to them becoming an outlier in the culture of the team, or if they're not an outlier, they become, someone that can start creating a negative culture in the team. So it's very important that when you hire people for the team, because ultimately you need the team to drive the vision.
Sure.
So if the team is not functioning or if the culture of the team is not good, it really hampers your ability to drive that vision. So I would say it's really more about who the person is than what the person can do, in my opinion. Especially when you're growing a team. For our case, for example, we've been a startup for quite some time, and in startup phase, the team means everything.
Yes.
Because you face with challenges where people might need to respond in the middle of the night. Sometimes people need to work over weekends. They've got to work through the night. There's, the requirement is a lot, and the only way that people have the motivation to do that is if
Sure.
they believe in the vision of the company. So you've got to bring people on board that believe in the vision and who have good values. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Josè, key business principles that you have learned in your journey.
Yeah.
Name one or two of them.
Sure. Yeah.
People can walk away with from this podcast and also implement and
Sure.
just make their journey a bit
Sure.
more smoother.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's really important to have a problem that's worth solving. You need to work towards solving a problem, whether you're offering a service or you offering a product. That product or service has got to solve someone's problem, because what that gives you obviously is a market. When the problem that you're solving is a problem for enough people,
Sure.
You have a viable market. And for any business, you need a viable market to have some kind of a business model, where you
Sure.
can actually grow a business and have clients to sell to. So it's important to have a product or a service that's backed by a good problem. It's important to know who the people are that you're selling to. And then it becomes important to put a good team together so that you can execute on the product or the service, and also being able to execute on the business growth ideas that you have. So it's very important to have a good product or service. Like I said, it's important that you understand how that solves the problem for the end user, and it's important that you have a very good go-to-market and growth strategy. To be able to get your return on investment in terms of your efforts that went into the development of that product. Yeah.
I actually like the fact that you just validated the strategy that we use.
Sure.
So in one of my other businesses, we invest into startups.
Sure.
And what we look at the team.
Yeah.
We look at what resources they have.
Yeah.
And the demand. So
Sure.
we always use TRD.
Yes,
And you
absolutely.
just basically
Yeah.
explained it in your way.
Yes.
And I believe that is such a important model to
Sure.
actually go by in order to make decisions.
Yeah.
So someone watching this may be thinking, you know what, you need to be 18, 19 to be starting your business, to be successful. How long has GovTech been in business?
GrowthTech's been in business just over 4 years now. Yeah, we're going on our 5th year.
So under 25
Yeah.
and there are, in fact, according to my analytics, most people watching or following our journey is between 35 and 45.
Sure.
So a person watching this who's maybe 40 years old, maybe has a great job, but they have a vision that they want to see come alive. Do you think it's too late for them?
Definitely not. I don't think it's ever too late. You know, as long as you've got the will and you've got the energy and you've got the passion to do something, you can do it. You know, I think it's those things that make up a successful endeavor. Because it's got to be fueled. It's going to get tough, you know.
Yeah.
It becomes very difficult, especially if you've got a family and okay, I wouldn't know, but I can imagine, you know, if
Yeah.
you've got a family and you've got a day job, for example, and you're wanting to do something else, it becomes very tough. So you've got to have discipline, you've got to have passion, you've got to have all of those things, so that, you know, when you become tired, when you become despondent, those are the things that kind of fuel you, you know, to overcome those obstacles and push forward to what it is that you want to achieve.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid people are gonna think that you are a boy because you just said you wouldn't know having a family. So obviously you come from a family.
I mean, wife and
but I'm
children.
joking.
To be specific, wife and kids. Yeah.
wife and kids.
Yeah.
Guys, so there you have it. You do not need to be a specific age. I think the
Yeah.
founder of KFC started at
He
the age of
was
65.
he was over 60. Yeah, absolutely.
One key thing that is keeping people back. Most people think that they need funding in order to start a business. What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is that you definitely need money. Money is very important. It's a key driving factor, but you don't need money to start.
Yes.
Right. You don't need money for you to start.
Yeah.
You know, you can take whatever you have with the resources that you have and do something. You know, whether you can, it's putting together a simple website or designing flyers or brochures that you can give out. You know, you can always do whatever you
Yes.
can within your means to make a start.
Sure.
In terms of starting a business, in the sense of a business and all of the dynamics and components that are related, it's very important to have money, because a business is it's like a V8 engine, you know.
Yeah.
It's a hungry it's a hungry beast, you know.
Sure.
It always needs fuel. So it's important that you don't let that be, you know, the reason why you're not starting. It's
Sure.
important to start, but certainly, you know, work towards being able to grow the capital and the funding and the financial resources that you would need to start and grow your business. Yeah.
So we have an online community, and 100%, especially starting a brick and mortar business,
Yeah.
it's like a V8 engine.
Correct.
So starting an online business, can actually start it without money.
Sure.
But still you invest, because you
Yeah.
invest in time
Yes.
and effort, learning, etc. And especially these days, starting a digital business,
Yeah.
it's highly profitable.
Yep.
It's also quite cheap in
Yeah.
order to obviously get started. So thank you for
Yeah.
making that clear, that in order to start, you
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
funds.
So that's absolutely true. I mean, I know people who have started digital marketing, branding companies with absolutely nothing. You know,
Yes.
if you've got a computer and a Canva
Yeah.
license, you know, you can start selling your services.
Sure.
So I definitely agree with you in that sense. Yeah.
100%. And I mean, should the person be open to marketing maybe a different business, like you have said, and then that is where you can
Yeah.
start generating revenue. When it comes to growth tech, who is your ideal client?
Sure. Our ideal client at the moment is a manufacturer. Our systems and our solutions are very geared to the manufacturing space. We currently do a lot of work in automotive, but you know, we aren't sort of closed off or locked into just the automotive sector. Like I said, we also have solutions that can apply to other, sort of sectors of manufacturing. So our ideal client at the moment in terms of our AI solutions would be, I'd say, manufacturing clients, yeah. But we also offer software development services in the case of your web apps, mobile apps, all sorts of those software systems. So really, anybody who needs an app to be built or software to be built, whatever the case may be, it's well within our capability. But in terms of where we see ourselves, in the future, where we really find our niche and our specialization is in the field of the utility of artificial intelligence solutions.
So you basically confirmed that yes, it's important to understand your niche, but obviously as you go, you want to keep it wide because some may be starting a business. I mean, when I started my business, I didn't know that this is what I'm actually going to do. So I had to keep my options open. So someone thinking of starting a business shouldn't just be going for that one specific niche. As you go, you can always niche down and go deeper into what you, the problem that you are obviously solving.
Absolutely, and I'll give you a good example as well in terms of our journey. Although we specialize in software AI systems, because we're working in industry, there's often a big requirement from industry clients is that you deliver turnkey solutions. So a turnkey solution means it's all packaged and ready to install, and you install and it runs. So that often involves a lot of other components that was not sort of within our scope. Like mechanical design. A manufacturing, installation, the electrical, stuff, the mechanical stuff, all of those things was never really within our scope. But it's very, slowly but surely starting to creep into the scope of work that we, also do. So it's important to understand the environment that you're operating in. It's important to understand what your clients require, and it's important to be able to adapt your business and the offering of your business to what your clients need as quickly as possible. So it's very dynamic. So you've got to be adaptable.
100%. Josè, we are wrapping up now, and I want to come back to earlier you mentioned about in the beginning you used to have a problem with communicating, stuttering, etc. And what do you think? What has put you in a position? Because now you say that you can go into any meeting and be able to communicate fluently. What do you think, or what did you do in order to actually overcome that?
I think I was like someone that couldn't swim that jumped into the ocean. I think that was it. I just tried. I knew, for example, going into a meeting that I'm going to have an issue with my speech, but I went into the meeting anyway. And I tried anyway, and it took me very long sometimes to communicate the point that I wanted to communicate. But I did it anyway, and I did it until I became, more and more comfortable, more and more confident. And I think it was just through a process of just, putting myself through that psychological trauma for long enough that basically just forced me to fix the issue. So I can't pinpoint something specifically. I tried speech therapy.
You actually pinpointed it.
Yeah.
There are entrepreneurs watching this here today, and most people want to grow their business, but they are not willing to do what it takes in order to grow their business. So I'm a firm believer that competence creates confidence.
Yes.
I didn't know really why you used to stutter before that, and hence I asked the question. So, but you then made it clear as you became competent.
Yes.
the confidence
Yes,
grew,
correct.
and then you got ahead of
Correct,
it.
correct.
So it's not like it's a medical thing. You had to go through an
Yeah.
operation or anything
Yeah.
like that. So at the end of the day, once one become more competent in what you do,
Yes.
and then the
Yeah.
confidence goes. So
Yeah.
you don't just get confidence. You
Correct.
can't
Correct.
just drink a Red
Yeah.
Bull and think no.
Yes. Yes. And I think also, I was very young when I went into this. So I was 14, 15 years old, meeting with executives and, those.
Sure.
So it was very overwhelming for me, I think, also at the stage. I was a bit of a nutcase. I was just someone that I didn't care about how old I was. I didn't
Yeah.
care about the fact that I had practically no resources. I just thought in my head, I thought that anything could be achieved, So I
And I hope
went
that you
into,
still believe that.
yeah, to a certain extent, to a certain extent. I think that, I was a bit of a nutcase, and I got myself into situations very prematurely sometimes because of that, and maybe, that was also one of the reasons, being 15 years old and going into a boardroom meeting with corporate executives. It's very overwhelming psychologically, and I think that could have also been one of the contributors. But like I said, as you do it more often, as you grow, as you start to realize that what you have to say people actually care about, you become more confident and more able to do it.
So if you could go back in time, would you change that?
Definitely not. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, look, being a nutcase was very often to my detriment. A lot of other things in my life, I think, suffered because of how focused I was on wanting to start a business and grow a business in the tech space. Um, so a lot of other things suffered, but I think I definitely don't think I would have grown
Yes, as fast as you
as
did.
I did if I hadn't taken that approach. So
Yeah.
so I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So many people believe in like the what work-life balance,
Yeah.
but I'm also a firm believer. I'm not saying that you must now neglect everything else, but I went into a conversation with my wife and
Yeah.
I told her, you know what, for this 2 years, I'm going to be focused on growing this business,
Yeah.
and once that business grows, it changed everything. So
Correct.
now I own my time and all of those
Absolutely.
kind of things.
Absolutely.
So if you are willing to set out 5 years maybe
Yeah.
and grow your business and lay the foundation, then you can put
Yeah.
others in place,
Correct.
and then you can have
Yeah.
time freedom.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm also a firm believer that yeah, like you've said, that if you weren't so focused, and then chances are that you wouldn't
Yeah.
have been able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be where you are today. José, any last comments before we go?
No, from my side, thanks for the opportunity. I think it was good being able to share some of my journey and my story. To anybody out there, wanting to start or wanting to do something, I would say just immerse yourself as much as possible in what it is that you want to do. Become laser focused, focus on that, make that your priority. You will fail. You definitely will fail. But it's so cliche, but it's really true. When you fail, you've just got to stand up very quickly and
Yeah.
start again.
Yeah.
And move forward. So I think it's all about that forward
Failing
movement. Yes, yes. Um, and as long as as you're doing that, at some point, you are going to break through and you are going to achieve what it is that you want to achieve.
100%. Thank you for the willingness to actually be here and share your journey. There we have it, family. So, like you guys know, that this podcast is all about us actually sharing with you as the viewers how other entrepreneurs started and how they actually did it with the intention of inspiring. So, whether you are from the location, whether you are from Mitchell's Plain, Eldorado Park, the northern areas, anyone can do it. And oftentimes we don't have good role models, but this podcast is all about creating awareness of good role models, I would like to think. So I know that you are humble about what you've achieved, but when people listen to this, I believe that this is a video that you should share with your family, that you should share with anyone out there aspiring to become better, because sometimes we don't believe in ourselves, and they maybe don't take advice from a relative, but sometimes they take advice from a stranger. And thank you so much for following, and please do subscribe so you can get a notification for next week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. José, it was great being
Thank you
here
so much.
with you in studio. And I don't want to like
That put me on the
put you on
spot.
the spot. Yeah. But you are a musician and you do sing. And we have
Sure.
Enoch M. Keys here.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
is there maybe a chance that we can hear some vocals?
Sure. Why not? Why not?
Awesome
We
stuff.
can do
Awesome
something.
stuff.
I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. Hallelujah.